I'm in the immigrant wilderness. This time going up to what I think is going to be a golden trout lake. Haven't done any research on, and it's sort of my plan B for today. I'm meant to be going up to the Granite Lakes, but I've got a huge honeydew list at home, and I woke up this morning at the trailhead and was thinking about that honeydew list and the fact that I'm supposed to have it done by next weekend, and decided instead of opting for 4 days in the immigrant, um, I'm gonna uh, I'm gonna do a day trip today, and then I'm gonna drive home tonight, and that'll give me 3 extra days to get the honeydew list done. Um, yeah. So that's what it is. Again, I don't know anything about this lake really, other than its location and that it's supposed to have golden trout. So I may get up there and it may be completely dead, and it may have, may have no fish at all. But at least I'll know. Today I'm carrying my dark timber custom Comanche. Fishing gear wise, today I've brought two graphite rods. Both are Sage LL that I made from kits. The Sage LL is the Sage Lightline series, which they discontinued. I don't know, it was maybe 25 years ago. It's a, sort of a classic medium action graphite fly rod. And I thought, on this trip, that I would bring that along. Originally I would be fishing maybe 3 different lakes, and I haven't fished them in a while. The the 9-foot LL rod was one of my favorites before I started making my own rods. So I thought it'd be fun to bring those out and fish them a bit. I've been asked to provide more information around what I'm fishing and how I'm fishing and how I set up and all of that sort of good stuff. I thought I was doing that, and I tend to maybe not front load the videos with that information. I tend to give that information during the video. So if you're not watching the whole thing, maybe you're not getting that. But I guess what I'm finding that I seem to be getting a lot of beginner fishers, or people that don't fish but backpack, that are interested in getting into fly fishing. And so I have had that request to provide more fishing information. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to create a little series where I'll go through setup and how I set up, and my philosophy, and the folks that I turn to, for information in terms of best fishing techniques. I mean, I mention Denny Rickards a lot because he's got stillwater fly fishing dialed in the U.S. Lake fishing is huge in the U.K. So if you're looking for really good lake fishing information, looking at UK magazines, UK books, that's a good place to start. So yeah, I mean, the way that I fish works for me. Again, it is the way that I fish, and I'll provide that. I'll provide more information on that in other videos. I don't think this trip is going to be that video, but I will make an effort. I will come up with a series that goes through, the lines that I'm using, how I'm setting them up, how I approach the streams, how I approach the lakes, in a more methodical way than I have been doing. So the hike today starts at a trailhead that I'm familiar with, and I basically follow the trail until it gets to the top of the ridge, and then I go off trail. I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm going to guess, I don't know, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, but it could be shorter than that. My hike is starting out at 8,400 feet. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to top out at. It's starting on a jeep trail,
That was a little bit too rough to get my my RAV4 up. So I've got to follow the Jeep trail to a lake and the trailhead proper, and then the hike really starts. I'm at the first lake, and this is really where the trailhead is. It's taken me 50 minutes to get here. I'm now at 9,600 feet, and it was about just over a 1.5 mile hike to get here. Now this lake has fish. I could fish this if memory serves. It has Kamloops rainbows, which are, you know, a great species to fish for. They're known for their fighting ability. I'm going to follow the trail up that way, and I believe where I want to go is over that ridge. You know, there's a more direct route. I mean, I could have gone, you know, straight up. That's more direct, but I've chosen to take the route that's going to give me the least amount of elevation gain for the distance covered. So I'm going to head up, and then I'm just going to cut across. I have hiked this trail before. This was the entry point that Roger and I took on a week-long emigrant hike. I think it was about 8 years ago. We got caught in an early lightning storm at the top of that ridge and had to hunker down on a saddle between the next peak and this one. 2 miles from where I parked my car marks the official start of the trailhead. I'm high above the first lake at about 9,700 feet. It's taken me just maybe an hour and 20 minutes to get here. I think if I'm reading the map correctly, I'm at pretty much where I want to be to start going cross country. And the way that I've planned it, if I head in this direction, it should be basically a lateral hike over to the lake. I'm a half mile away as the crow flies. Now, from the look of things, the lake should be right down in there. And you can see the trail continues up over that rise. In fact, it looks like there might even be a little trail. I tell you, this is so cool. We're really fortunate to have this. You know, I know other parts of the country are probably just as beautiful, and they have their own unique features. But this, you know, this really does it for me. You know, I've not had any experience in the high mountains outside of the Pyrenees and the Sierra. Next year, I hope to do some backpacking in the Rockies to see what that's all about. I have been to Montana. I've been to the Bob Marshall Wilderness, and that was, you know, that was amazing. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. I guess I just love being out in the outdoors. First glimpse of the lake. It's got a sort of that aqua glacial tint on it. Let's talk about fishing for a minute. When you get to a lake like this, if you have the advantage of being at the top, looking down, the bird's eye view, it's a good time to make some mental notes of the characteristics of the lake. An outlet here with a sandy flat. We have a point here that seems to drop off fairly quickly. We've got the rest of the lake, which also seems to drop off fairly quickly. We've got a little point out there with some structure. It looks like a big rock underneath. We've got what looks to be runoff here, not really an inlet stream, but runoff, which would create an inlet as long as there's snow runoff. And so, you know, you need to consider where you're going to find fish. So when I approach a lake, that's the first thing I'm thinking of. Outlets and inlets are always the best places to fish because there's moving current. Moving current in a lake is always a good place because the fish can rest and food will be brought to them. Points are always a good place. You know, anywhere where you have abrupt structural changes, drop-offs, points, underwater structure, those are always going to be good places to find fish. So what I'm seeing is that most of the lake drops off pretty quickly, which is good for me because fish will cruise that drop off because of the safety that it provides and the fact that you know, when you're shallow water concentrates food, and so if they can hang out on the drop off, they've got food to one side, they've got safety to the other. There are these flats, so I might want to put my waders on, wade out and fish this. I'm not seeing any fish so far. I'm all geared up. What I've done is put on my soft tackle beadhead gold ribs hare's ear in a size 12. To the bend of that hook, I've tied on 18 inches of 5X leader, and to that I have one of Denny Rickard's Calabatus nymphs. Now I'm starting off with the Calabatus nymph because it's the immigrant. I know that they're active this time of year. Most of the lakes have them, so you know, there's a good chance that this lake has them, although I'm not seeing much in the way of habitat. I have seen a minnow, which means that there's hopefully fish here. I fish the gold ribs hare's ear in a size 12 because, one, it adds weight, so it helps me. I'm fishing a floating line, so it helps me get my fly down. Two, it's a confidence fly of mine. I mean, I know it works. It's caught everything everywhere I go. And so the idea is I've got one fly that is going to make everything sink. I've got another fly attached to that. Both flies are fishable. The gold ribs hare's ear will have more motion as it will bob up and down more as I retrieve. And the Calabatus nymph will bob up and down a little bit, but it'll have more subtle movement. Again, I've not seen any active fish, so I'm going to do a little prospecting. Probably start off with a 5 count or a 15 count. Ideally, you know, I would expect the fish, if they're active, to be feeding in the first, you know, the first 3 feet of water. And so what I want to do is I want to start high, so the fly is above the fish, and then go lower from there. Unless the fish are feeding on the bottom, they're typically not looking down. So even if you're not in their feeding zone, if they're being opportunistic, and they're opportunistic most of the time, if they see a fly above them, you know, they'll come up for it. So I'm going to throw a few casts before wading out. I mean, the water is clear-ish, but I can't see, you know, off the drop-off, I can't see deeper than maybe a foot or two. I can see that there's darkness there, but there could be fish right in there that I can't see. So before I go into the flats, I want to make sure that I've at least presented my fly to any fish that are actually in my casting range without stepping into the water. So I'll pull in the slack, count to 5. 1 1 second, 2 1 second, 3 1 second, 4 1 second, 5. Start a slow strip, strip, pause, retrieve. Now I've got the calabatus nymph on, but I may switch to a size 20 gold rose hare's ear, just to present 2 different size flies to the fish. The flies I'm fishing now are pretty close together in size, and slightly different silhouette, but not that different. I'll go ahead and fish that. So what I'm doing is I'm fan casting, presenting at each area of the clock at the same depth, and then I'll go down to a 15 count, do the same thing, and then I'll step out into the water. Okay. Man, these clouds came in fast. So I made maybe 12 or 15 casts in that area, and I'm moving on. Still not seeing any cruising fish. I am seeing these minnows though, so that is better than nothing. And I'm just gonna walk this bank looking for fish. I don't know if I'm gonna fish the flats. Maybe I'll make 1 or 2 casts, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the fish are deep. So I kind of want to walk along here. If I see fish, cast to them, but then make it to the deeper water, make it to that point where it's got some deeper water. Could I be absolutely wrong about my assertion that the fish are in deeper water? Yes, I could be. But the fact that I'm just not seeing anything is leading me to that presumption. Because even when the fish aren't in shallow water, you occasionally see 1 or 2 working shallow water. And as I said earlier, the shallow water is where the food is concentrated. So that's where you would expect to find active fish. But when the fish aren't active, then you've got to look for fish that are just being opportunistic and just sort of hanging out. I've come around to the low side of that point. My hope is, the wind's coming this way, so I'm going to cast over my right shoulder. My hope is the fish are stacked up with their face into the wind, and then I can present across to them. Now I do a 15 count. Pulling in my line a little bit. Now, since this wind and this current, I may need to mend a little bit to slow the fly down, because when you're fishing, when the wind is going to pick up a line, it's going to try to put a big bow in the line, and that's just going to speed the fly up. So I'll start a slow figure of 8 retrieve. The clouds have pretty much completely blocked out the sun. Wind chills come up. I've put gloves on. I've seen my first real fish sign out in the middle of the lake. There was a fish that jumped. So that is somewhat encouraging. So I've changed flies. I've fished different depths. Now I'm changing my retrieve. I'm going from a slow retrieve to a fast retrieve. See if that would make any difference. Now, these are golden trout. Golden trout usually aren't on a fast retrieve, but so far I've done everything that I can to find active fish, and it's just not happening. I have confirmed that they're golden trout. One of the small trout swam by close enough for me to actually see, and when I say small, I mean 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, but small enough for me to see its paw marks and coloring. So I've counted down to 60 seconds, which is not ideal with this setup. still no interest. So gonna keep moving, keep trying different levels, different retrieves. I'm stopping for lunch. Still not getting any action, and the fish that I'm seeing, I've seen maybe 2 or 3 larger fish, mostly out of casting range. But the fish that I'm seeing are because they're hitting the surface. So I may switch to a dry fly. I mean, there are times when trout won't take a nymph, but they'll go crazy over a dry fly for whatever reason. And this may be one of those times. So I'm going to make my way to the outlet, and I'll fish the outlet with a nymph. And then if nothing happens over there, then I'm going to switch to a dry, and do some quick prospecting, and then probably head out. Turns out the outlet is dried up, so there's no creek to fish. There's no current bringing food in this direction. I think I'm going to get dumped on soon. I'm almost all the way around the lake. As soon as I make it to the other side, maybe I'll leave. What time is it? It's not even 1 o'clock yet, I don't think. Yeah, it's not even 1 o'clock. I mean, if the thunderstorms come in, that's early. Now, this whole thing is just one big flat. But again, no fish. So, I mean, the key is to be here, I guess, when the insects are active and the fish are in these flats, looking for all that food. Whenever that is. It's certainly not now. Either every fish in the lake has decided to hit the surface, or I'm about to get rained on. Okay, it's starting to rain, but I've gone ahead and I've put on probably size 12 ant, and I've got that size 20 hare's ear on as the dropper. It looks like it's really going to start to come down, so I think I'll call it a day. I made it almost all the way around the lake. I started right there, so it's just this little area in here that I didn't get to fish. So yeah, interesting little lake. Don't know what to say about it other than I haven't caught any fish. So skunked today, but there's always next time. The rain hasn't, it's come down. It's not actually that bad, so I'm going to continue fishing. So I'm fishing this dry, and this is sort of a Hail Mary. And the way that I'm fishing it is I'm casting it out, waiting until the rings subside, letting it sit, giving it a couple twitches, and then I'll let it sit some more, and then I'll recast. I'm not going to sit here for 10 minutes with my fly just sort of sitting out. That's just not my style. So I'll try hitting different sections, and then I'll move down like I do with the nymph. I've got that gold ribs hare's ear as a dropper. The idea there is it's going to be hanging just underneath the film, and so if there are fish that are coming and picking up emergers or midges hanging just underneath, that'll be of interest to them. It is 1:15, and had the first crack of thunder. Had the first and second crack of thunder. It's starting to hail, which always happens to me when I'm over here. So definitely time to get out of Dodge. I'm going to quickly pack up and get out of here because I'm too close to the. I'm too high. I'm just too high. Unfortunately, the fastest way out of here is up. The weather can turn so fast. Once I get up over that hump, I think I'll be out of danger of any lightning strikes. It'll be on the main road headed down. Well, that's a pleasant sight. I'm going in the opposite direction of the storm, which is always preferred. Okay, finally down at the lake, which is, of course, not where you want to be in a lightning storm. But skies are clearing out where my car is, and this is maybe only a 5 or 10 minute section of trail, so I should be out of harm's way in 5 or 10 minutes theoretically. I used to be deathly afraid of lightning. I don't know what brought it on. You know, I mean, I went for years and years and years not really noticing it, not caring. And then, I don't know, about 12 years ago, I developed this real phobia and almost a paralyzing fear. You know, every time I was in a thunderstorm, and I don't know, maybe, you know, I once read a book by Bob Magic about what happened to a bunch of folks that were hiking up Half Dome, and a lightning storm came in, and at Half Dome apparently there are these caves at the top, and they did the wrong thing, which was they took shelter in the caves. One, rock is conductive, so you know, lightning hits the rock, it would carry on into those caves. But also, what they didn't know is that that particular section of rock had, I don't know if it was a deliberate lightning rod in it or what, but it had a piece of iron that was buried inside from the top all the way into the cave. And so when the lightning struck, it basically bounced all around the cave, and people died. People ended up with permanent injuries, permanent disabilities, all of that sort of stuff. And so I don't know if that's where my phobia came from after reading that book. It was around the same time, but you know, for years it would just shut me down. And then, this must have been 5 years ago, I decided, you know, I really need to get a hold of this, you know, because I didn't grow up being afraid of thunder and lightning. And I didn't, you know, when I first started hiking in the Sierra, I'm like, okay, starting to rain, lightning, thunderstorm, I'll stop, take shelter somewhere. It's all good. It never really bothered me. But, you know, and then I got to a point where I was really being super, maybe over conscientious or conscious of my actions during a thunderstorm. You're right. You know, I mean, you read all the right things that you're supposed to do, find a low-lying area, or find an area with consistent tree height. You know, don't be high on the peak. get into the shelter position, all of that kind of good stuff. And you know, I used to do that. And you know, when as I was saying earlier, when Roger and I, you know, when we were here last, we got caught just like today. It was, you know, it was the middle of the day, and it happened actually twice. It was the middle of the day, and right around the same time, right around 1 o'clock, which is super early for thunderstorms in the Sierra. You know, normally, you know, the earliest you might expect them is 3. You know, between 3 and 6 is when you expect to have them. 1 o'clock, I mean, they do happen this early, but it's not the rule. So anyway, Roger and I were we were in the same area, going right up the ridge line, and sure enough, thunderstorm came in. There's a saddle right below that ridge, and so we hightailed it down to that saddle, and then things got really bad, and so we sheltered there. We ended up sheltering there for 2 hours, sitting on our bear canisters in the lightning position, and then we finally decided that that we were gonna just spend the night there. So we essentially sheltered there, you know, the entire afternoon and into the evening. The lightning eventually went away, and then in the middle of the night, another storm rolled in, and I can remember Roger saying, "What should we do? Should we shelter?" And I'm like, you know what? And I'm just gonna stay in my tent. If my tent gets hit, it gets hit. But I guess, you know, the next day we were going up over the next peak, and it's the peak that's right above Kennedy Lake, takes you into High Immigrant Lake, and you know, it was all sunny, clear skies. We had talked to some folks coming up over the pass, and we were like, "Hey, what's the weather over there?" "Oh, it's great, it's beautiful, blah 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 blah." By the time we got to the top, a thunderstorm rolled in so fast. I mean, it was ridiculously fast. It was, you know, 15 minutes. You know, 1 minute it was clear. The next, you know, 15 minutes later, it was full on hail and lightning flashing all around us. And I mean, literally flashing all around us, because we were at the top. We were at the top of the peak. And so we ran, and fortunately it's like switchbacks. It's not a very steep trail. We ran that trail all the way down to High Immigrant Lake. And that whole time, there's just lightning, you know, coming down around us. But we eventually got to High Immigrant, and the storm let up a little bit and allowed us to fish, I think, for about, I don't know, 20 minutes before it rolled back in. And it basically, it followed us all the way down to Immigrant Lake. So we went from High Immigrant to Immigrant Meadow, and we did fish Immigrant Meadow for a little bit, and then went down to Middle Immigrant, and then followed the creek all the way down to Immigrant. And when I say it followed us, I mean it was behind us. I don't know, maybe 30 minutes to an hour behind us the entire time. And then what tends to happen is right at Blackbird, the storms seem to get hung up there at Blackbird, and it just must be that ridge line. And you know, you can be an Immigrant and see these clouds rolling in. I should probably put on my should probably stop and put on my hiking shoes now. This is sandy and slippy. Anyway, you can see the clouds rolling down, you know, coming down the canyon that holds the creek, and then you can see them get caught right there at Blackbird. So as I was saying, I used to have this intense fear, and then probably about 5 years ago, lightning storm. I was hiking up through Lunch Meadow, and thunderstorm came in, and Lunch Meadow's a good place to camp anyway. So I found a nice camp spot and I hunkered down, and I sat there for about 30 minutes, and it was midday, and I could see people walking up the trail, and they just kept going. And I was supposed to be going over Brown Bear Pass, but I was like, I've still got like 5 good hours of hiking left. I don't want to sit here for 5 hours doing nothing. All those folks are going. Why not me? So instead of going over Brown Bear Pass, which is where the storm was centered, I decided to go over Mosquito Pass and go to the Emigrant. And so ever since then, I do my best to get out of harm's way, but it's not shutting me down. So I kind of, and so today, even though going up wasn't the textbook way of getting out of the storm, it was going to be the fastest way for me to get out of danger in the long haul. Because if I had gone straight down, I'd still be in this mess somewhere, going up and down, trying to figure out how to get to my car. I'd probably end up way down there in that valley, and yeah, I definitely don't need that. So I guess what I'm saying is I have a healthy respect for lightning, but I think one needs to be prudent around the actions the actions one takes. If you can get out of there and get low at the same time, that's the way to go. And so that's what I chose today. So a little bit of danger to get to a point where there will be absolutely no danger, no way of me getting lost, reduce the risk of me getting injured, trying to get low and ending up somewhere where I'm not familiar. Safe and sound at the car. Took me an hour and a half to get back. The rain has followed me down, so I've got thunder and rain coming down on top of me. Now it's coming down harder. Not quite out of the woods yet. I brought the RAV4 through some gnarly sections of fire road. So I've got to navigate those. I've got a stream crossing, but shouldn't be too bad. If you've stayed with me for this long, thank you. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for coming along. Oh, and everything's wet. Everything is wet. Normally I employ a 2 garbage bag system on my pack, one inside, one outside. I didn't get a chance to put the outside one on, so the entire pack is wet. What are you gonna do?